Semantics is the study of meaning, and pragmatics is also a study of meaning. But pragmatic is a little bit different from semantics in that pragmatics studies meaning in interaction, including speaker intention. So we take into account what a speaker intends to say, okay? Whereas semantic studies meaning, but meaning may be out of the interaction, maybe meaning in a context without taking into consideration the speaker's attention, okay? So the first topic that we talked about last time was how meanings can overlap, right? The meaning of one sentence can overlap with the meaning of another sentence. That's semantics because we don't take into account the speaker intention. So we look at one case in particular, which is the case of entailment, right? When sentence A entails sentence B, it means the meaning of sentence A overlaps with the meaning of sentence B, right? The meaning of sentence B is included somehow in the meaning of sentence A, okay? And generally speaking, entailment is one way, is unidirection, right? Unidirectional, meaning if A entails B, it doesn't always happens that B entails A, okay? And today we'll move on to how meanings can be assumed, okay? How when you say a particular sentence, there are many assumptions that are in that sentence, okay? And that's the case of presupposition, okay? So last time we talked about how meanings can overlap. Today, how meanings can be presupposed or can be assumed. So presupposition is the topic that we'll start with today. So, you know, presupposition, to suppose is to think, okay? So to presuppose is to think before, to assume to be true before you ever say it, okay? So a presupposition refers to what a speaker or what a writer assumes to be true before making the sentence without having to say it in that sentence, okay? This is what the speaker takes for granted, okay? So a presupposition, I will call it a presup. A presupposition is assumed rather than directly asserted. So you don't have to actually, or one doesn't have to actually say it, but it's already assumed there, okay? It's not explicit in the sentence or in the utterance, okay? So I have these three examples. In example 1, Anne has a sofa. That's just a regular, straightforward utterance. That's, a straightforward sentence. I taught for 3 hours this morning. It directly asserts that Anne has a sofa, right? Anne has a sofa means Anne has a sofa. You make an assertion. You make a claim that she has a sofa, right? It's directly stated. It's explicitly stated that she has a sofa, right? But if you say 2 and 3, don't sit on Anne's sofa, or we'll look at the last one later. Don't sit on Anne's sofa. You don't have to actually say she has a sofa. But when you say don't sit on her sofa, on Anne's sofa, it's already assumed, right, that she has a sofa, right? Because when you say this, don't sit on Anne's sofa, you already assume, the speaker already assumes that she has a sofa without having to say it. So the fact that she has a sofa is presupposed. That's what we call, okay? It's presupposed. It's already assumed in that sentence. And, don't sit on her sofa. Or the king of Korea is bald, okay? Whenever you say this, you already assume that there is a king of Korea, right? If he is bald, then there must be the king of Korea. So it presupposes that there is a king of Korea, okay? Or Korea has a king, like that. So this sentence, the king of Korea is bald, presupposes that there is a king of Korea, or Korea has a king. Okay? So that's what we call presupposition. And And there can be more than one presupposition in a sentence or in an utterance. Where has Chris looked for the keys? It presupposes many things. It presupposes it's a question, okay? So it presupposes that he has looked for the keys, okay? Because if you ask that question, where has he looked for the keys? So it presupposes that he has looked for the keys, okay? Or even there are keys that Chris has looked for and those keys are not with him at the moment, like that. So there are many things that can be presupposed at the same time in this particular question, okay? Or if you say, did you buy this awful wine, right? Then it's a question. So by uttering that question, you make many presuppositions, like it's a wine, not soju, not beer, like that. And someone bought the wine, which is you, the hearer, right? Or the wine is awful. Did you buy this awful wine? Without having to say that the wine is awful, by using it as the adjective here, right? Modifying wine, you're making that presupposition that it's awful, okay? And so on. So this should be not hard to detect. And what's interesting about a presupposition is that a presupposition stays true. Doesn't matter if you negate the sentence. If you negate the sentence, meaning if you put the word not into the sentence, the presupposition is still there because it's already assumed. And that assumption is already there no matter what. So, for example, I understand why Mike smashed the TV. Smash is to damage, right? To make it like broken. So I understand why Mike smashed the TV. One supposition is he smashed the TV, okay? Whether or not you understand it, he smashed the TV. If you negate the sentence by saying, I don't understand why he smashed the TV, the presupposition is still there that, he smashed the TV. And there was a person that is by the name of Mike, okay? That's another presupposition. So by saying I understand or I don't understand, it doesn't matter. The presuppositions like Mike smashed the TV is there, and the presupposition like there was a TV or there was a person by the name of Mike is still there. So when you negate a sentence, presupposition is always there. This is different, this is the opposite of entailment. Because with entailment, when you negate sentence A, B cannot be true, right? Because the truth of B follows from the truth of A. But here, presuppositions do not follow anything. Presuppositions are there, regardless of the truth of the sentence, okay? Or like this, have you stopped beating your girlfriend, right? If you ask that question, one of the possible presuppositions is the listener has a girlfriend, right? If you ask that question. Or the listener beat his girlfriend at least once, because the word stop means, or have you stopped, meaning it must have happened at least once before, right? So notice that the answer yes or no, yes, I have stopped, or no, I haven't stopped, which is worse, right? I haven't stopped beating her. No matter how you answer it, the presuppositions here are still true. That the listener has a girlfriend and you must have beaten her at least once, and so on, okay? And presupposition can be quite damaging, okay? Because it's already assumed to be true without having to say it, right? Why did you take drugs again? The word again means that you did it before, right? There's no way to cancel that presupposition. If you say, yeah, because of this or because of that, it's still presupposed that you took the drug before, like that, okay? So that's presupposition. So before we move to the next topic, I would like to make sure that you guys understand and do not mix up presupposition with entailment. So we'll do some practice together in class here. So I'll pass the handout around and we'll practice recognizing presupposition. So for a presupposition, there can be more than one presupposition in a sentence, and a presupposition is always there regardless of the truth of the sentence. If you negate the sentence, if the sentence is not true, it doesn't matter. Okay? Yes, I know. So what matters is that the presupposition always stays the same. So how many would you need? Do you need? Two? Oh. So I give you the whole pack here. Sorry. Okay, so we'll practice recognizing presupposition. So there can be more than one. One more? One more? Okay, the first one, Jin Hyung's car is the new 2015 Mercedes C220. Here, let me show this as an example. There can be many presuppositions, right? One of the presuppositions is, well, he has a car. Jin Hyung has a car, right? That's one of the presuppositions, right? Because by making it like a possessive noun phrase, Jin Hyung's car, like that. So it means he has a car without having to say that explicitly in the sentence, because it's a presupposition, right? It's a presupposed thought. So that's one of the presupposition, okay? And maybe Mercedes launched the new model in 2015. Or Mercedes launched a new model in 2015. Okay, so that could be another one. Whenever there's a specific noun phrase, specific in terms of possession, possessive noun phrase like Jin Hyung's car or Mercedes 2015 C220, whenever there's a specific noun phrase like that, you can be sure that there must be at least one presupposition about the existence, okay? If there's a specific noun phrase like the name of the model, the name of the person, the presupposition is the existence of that thing, of that specific thing, okay? So, existence of the specific noun phrase. When you see a specific noun phrase. Or even another presupposition is there is a person by the name of Jin Hyung, like that. There could be more than one. There is a person by the name of Jin Hyung, like that. The second one, okay, so far so good for the first one. The second one, it is quite surprising that it sometimes rains during the winter. One of the presupposition is that whatever you have after the that clause, after the CP, it sometimes rains during the winter. So that's the presupposition. Okay? Notice that, I will talk about number 1 too. Notice that when you negate the sentence by putting the word not in there, it's not surprising that it sometimes rains during the winter. If you negate the main clause, the presupposition is still true, right? It's not surprising that it rains during the winter. So it's still true that it sometimes rains during the winter. Just like number 1, if you negate it, Jin Hyung's car is not the new. It is BMW, whatever, right? It's not, still, there's a person by that name, he has a car, and the Mercedes company launched the new model in 2015. So no matter what you do to the main sentence, negate it in any way, the presuppositions are still there, okay? So could you do number 3 to number 8? So find at least one presupposition from 3 to 8, okay? When you have a that clause, like this, it's usually what is after the that clause that's presupposed, okay? So like here you have a that clause. You guys know puke, right? The word puke. What is puke? Throw up, right? Throw up. 토하다, right? Which one?
Sorry.
Oh, it's a fact? I have my spy. I know everything. I know everything. I have spies everywhere. I know everything in Inmunde. 영어 영문학과 especially. So find at least one presupposition. At least one. When you see a specific name, it presupposes the existence of that thing, right? Three more minutes. Whose puke was it? I didn't know that. Whose? 누구의 puke? So many people? Oh. He's like a trash can. So I hear people talking, so it means you're finished. So let's look at number 3. Okay, number 3. 집중하세요. Number 3. Everybody knows Krista is the best professor at Hanyang. So here, one of the things that is presupposed is the fact that Krista is the best professor at Hanyang. So that's the presupposition, okay? So what I underline here is one presupposition that's possible, right? Even though you negate the sentence, nobody knows, right? Nobody knows Krista is the best professor. Still, that sentence is true. That part is true. That presupposition is true, okay? It's presupposed. Or when you see things like this, right? Or things like this, right? There exists a person by that name, Krista, right? And there exists the university called Hanyang, like that, okay? This is a place by the name Hanyang, like that. Again, even though you negate the sentence, nobody knows Krista is the best professor at Hanyang. All of these presuppositions are true. Okay, so there are maybe up to 3 presuppositions here. Okay. Number 4. How kind of Hyunjang to have caught his friend's puke in his hand. When you see a specific name, again, it implies or it presupposes the existence of that person, right? There exists a person by the name of Hyunjang, right? And you also have this noun phrase there, specific noun phrase. So it is presupposed that Hyunjang has friends, right? And also he has hands, right? Of course, right? In order to be able to do that, he must have hands, right? More than one too. More than one hand. And maybe the most important presupposition is number 4 in the small clause part. He caught his friend's puke in his hand, right? His friend's puke in his hand. Okay? And even though you negate the sentence, how unkind of him to have caught, or how cruel of him to have caught, whatever, how silly of him, whatever, is still true that he caught his friend's puke. Okay? Whose puke did you catch? Secret? Many people or just one? Just one? 누구? 누구예요? 누구? I'm interested. In who? I know. It's a well-known fact. No specific person has to tell me. It's like I know that the world is round. It's a well-known fact that he's a nice person. He's a kind person. I know everything in Inmunde. I study people's Facebook posting. No, I was kidding. But whatever you guys post on Facebook, I see. And even though I don't like type in response, I see. Like last night, I saw him post his like photo that makes him look like cute. 귀엽다. Okay, next one. Sori started complaining about Krista's class. So when you see specific expressions like this, you have presuppositions, right? There exists a person by that name, and there exists a person by the name of Krista, and he teaches, right? So there could be many presuppositions. So there exists Sori, there exists Krista, there exists even Krista's class, like that. Or another presupposition is from the verb start, okay? When you say the verb start, it means to begin, right? 지착, right? So before, it was not like that, right? So to start means to change the state, to change the condition. So the presupposition is before she didn't complain about it, right? Because she started, right? She just started. So it's a change of state. So before that, it's presupposed that she didn't do that, okay? It's assumed that she didn't do that before because she just started, okay? Jihye, number 6, Jihye managed to get an A+ in Krista's class. Same thing when you see the specific, she always asks me questions after class. So it means she's really interested. So when you have the specific expressions, again, specific expressions indicate the existence of those things. Like there exists a person by the name of Jihye, there exists a thing called Krista's class, like that. Okay? There exists Jihye, there exists Krista's class. And the verb that I circle here, the verb managed. The verb manage here means to try hard, okay? Manage includes trying hard. So it presupposes that she must have tried hard, okay? She must have tried hard, like that. So because manage means to try, to try hard, to try a lot, and successful, right? And she succeeded. Okay? Because manage, the verb manage itself includes try plus success, like that. So this one makes it look like an entailment, right? Because entailment is, if you remember, entailment is a relationship where what's implied is included in the word, right? Yes, it's a type of entailment. Presupposition is a type of entailment, but it's a type of entailment that even though you negate the sentence, the presupposition is there. If you negate it, Ji-hye didn't manage to get an A. She didn't manage, okay? It still means that she tried hard, okay? Number 7, Hyun-woong didn't realize he had a triplet brother named Krista. I look like him, right? We look like each other. Again, when you have the specific names like this, it implies or it presupposes the existence of those things. There exists Hyun-woong and Krista. Right. And things in the that clause will be presupposed too. That he had a triplet brother named Krista is presupposed. This whole thing is presupposed. So this one is already negated, right? So if you make it into a positive sentence, he realized that he had a triplet brother. Still, the fact is, or the presupposed fact is, he had a triplet brother, like that. Okay? So, last one here. Sungmin returned to a single life for freedom and non-commitment. Okay, we love freedom and we love non-commitment, right? So the specific expression again presupposes the existence of that person, and the verb to return. So there exists Sungmin, and the verb to return also indicates a change of state, right? So to return is to go back to the previous state, okay? So it presupposes that he was single before, right? He was single before, okay? Even though you negate the sentence, like Sungmin didn't return to a single life for freedom and non-commitment, those things are still true for presuppositions, okay? So to sum up here, for the presuppositions, specific expressions give rise to presuppositions of the existence of those things. And also verbs that indicate the change of state, like return, or manage or start, will indicate the previous state, will presuppose the previous state of those things. And the that clause is also a presupposition as well. Okay? So, questions? So, we finished, what is it? The first topic how meanings can be presupposed and how meanings can overlap. We will get into this second topic today, and hopefully we'll finish it. The second topic is how context shape meaning, okay? How context make meaning different. In syntax, we use the term clause or sentence or S, right? Contains a VP and an NP and so on. But in semantics and in pragmatics, we think that it doesn't have to be a clause or a sentence to convey meaning, to convey a full understanding of something. So we would use the word utterance instead, okay? So an utterance is an act of uttering something, and that something conveys speaker meaning, conveys speaker attention, okay? So, for example, if you have this exchange between A and B, A says, I would just decorate the room the way I want, not what you told me. So he wants his freedom of action, right? I don't want to do what you told me to do, I want to do it the way I like. B says, fine. Fine is not a sentence, it's a word in syntax, okay? But fine here indicates that B doesn't care anymore about A response like that. So we say that fine is an utterance that conveys a lot of things, not just the word fine. Fine here is not fine, right? It means he's angry. So it's not fine in that sense, but it means he doesn't care anymore. Do whatever you like that. So fine here communicates, do whatever you like, I don't care anymore, like that. And he's kind of angry or he's pissed off by A's decision, right? So we call it an utterance. Fine is an utterance rather than a sentence or a clause in pragmatics and semantics, okay? Or like this exchange between Jane and Steve, coffee, sure, white, black. There's no sentence at all here, only 4 utterances that convey a lot, right? Would you like some coffee? Like that. Instead of saying that, just coffee. Sure, yes, I would like some coffee. Please bring me some coffee. Like that. Sure conveys so many things. White, do you want it to be white or to be black? How do you like your coffee? Like that. Black. White is like coffee with milk. Right? Black is coffee without milk. Like that. So utterances do not consist of full sentences, but when you have an utterance, it conveys full meaning, a full understanding of the speaker intention, okay? Just like this one, same as the previous example that we saw before. 2 professors met in an elevator at noon. Have you had lunch yet? I've got class at 12:30. Next time then, sure. You know, B didn't even say he could or he could not do lunch. But the fact that he could not have lunch with A is implied in his utterance, right? I've got class at 12:30. It means he cannot do it. And A, have you had lunch yet? Is not just a question whether B had lunch or not, but it's an invitation to have lunch with A, okay? So it conveys a lot than what you see, right? Because the intention is to invite B for lunch, and B says, no, I cannot do that. He doesn't really say that, but he implies that, okay? Next time then, so A understands B's response, and he says, next time then, next time we can have lunch then, like that. And then B, sure. So each utterance is a unique event, and depending on the context, so context plays a lot in determining the speaker's intention, and also the speaker meaning, okay? And so we'll talk about the context, how context determines meaning. And when we study ambiguity, right, we didn't take context into account. If you have an example like, let's meet at the bank, without taking into consideration the context, the bank could mean 2 things. The bank could mean the place where you do some kind of financial transactions, unheng, right? So that's the bank. Or the bank could be the river. Okay, let's meet at the bank of the river. So without the context, you don't know whether it's the building, the bank, Eunhaeng, or the river. Okay, so but when we talk about meaning, we will talk about the context. If there is a context like the word bank on the wall of the building, then that in that case is clear that bank means Eunhaeng, like that, right? Or in this case, that man is a snake. If you don't have the context, that man is a snake, then it's not possible, right? How could a human being be a snake, be an animal? That's not possible. But if you have the context here, there's your Uncle George. That man is a snake. So maybe snake here refers to a kind of old guy who likes to flirt with women, like that. Not a good person, like that, because in Western culture, snake is not a good animal, like that. Okay, so snake here means that he is not a good person, he's not honest, and like that. Okay, so the context will determine the meaning, right? And we will look at a special case where context will determine the meaning. Okay, and that context is called deixis. Okay, deixis. Deixis means to point, right? Deixis means to point. Okay, like digit. Digit is to point. Okay, deixis is to point. And we already know that context is important. If you remember the word bank, bank could mean two things depending on the context. The context will tell you where we should meet, right? And some expressions are even more uninterpretable without the context, without the knowledge of the context, okay? And these words are what we call deixis or deictic expressions or deictic terms. So deictic is the adjective and deixis is the noun. So some words are not interpretable without the knowledge of the context, right? For the word bank, you know what it means, Eunhaeng or the river. But some words that we call deixis or deictic terms are uninterpretable without the knowledge of the context, okay? And the interpretation of these deictic terms depends on what, who, when, or where is picked out to be the referent. So the reference is the meaning, is the interpretation of the term. And who is the center of the term, okay? So let me give you some examples. We have four types of deixis, four types of deictic terms: temporal, demonstrative, spatial, and pronouns. For temporal deixis, the words like today, tomorrow, yesterday, now, then, or last, the reference, meaning which day exactly, the reference depends on when you say it, right? The reference, when exactly, temporal has to do with time, okay? Temporal means time. So the referent of these terms depends on when exactly the term is used, okay? For the term today, if you say it on the 12th of November, today is the 12th of November. Today will refer to the 12th of November. But if you say the same word today on the 13th of November, today will refer to the 13th of November. Okay? So it depends on when you say it. The reference will change. The word tomorrow too. It will depend, the reference of tomorrow will depend on when you say that. If you say it today, like the 12th of November, tomorrow would be the 13th, right? If you say the word tomorrow on the 13th, the reference would be the 14th, like that. So all of these words depend on when you say it, okay? So the referent changes, right, all the time, depending on when you say it, okay? Or for demonstrative, this, that, these, those, these and these are plural and singular, that and those are plural and singular, depending on who say it, from, where you say it from. If I'm here, I would say that I would refer to the board here as this board. But if you guys are far away, you would refer to it as that, depending on where you say it, right? So if you're close to that object, you would use these or these, depending on the number. If you are far away, then it's going to be that or those. So the reference will change. This or that will change depending on the distance of the speaker from that object. Okay. So again, deictic terms are terms whose reference change depending on the time, depending on the place. Demonstrative has to do with place, the distance of the speaker and the referent. Okay. Or the spatial terms. Spatial has to do with space or place. So depending on where the speaker is. Here, there, they are the opposite, right? Here's here, there's far away. Left or right, your left is not my left because I stand in facing you. So your left is my right, for example. So the referent will change depending on the space where the speaker is. Again, go versus come. Go, you use go when there's movement away from yourself, right? I go to school, I go to visit his house, like that. Or come, there's movement towards the listener, towards the speaker, right? Will you come with me today, like that? Will you come to my office? Not will you go to my office, right? If it's my office. Bring and take, the same thing, okay? Depending on where the speaker is and the direction from or towards the speaker. Or pronouns also, depending on who said it. When I said I, it refers to Krista. When you guys said I, it refers to one of you, right? Depending on who says it. So pronouns will have different reference depending on who say it, okay? All of these examples show that the reference change depending on the place, depending on the time of use. Like free soju tomorrow. Tomorrow could be any day depending on what time that sentence, that utterance is said. Okay? Or I'm going to London and I'm coming to London. The difference is I'm going to London. London is my destination and I'm moving towards London. Okay? And I'm coming to London, it's like the listener is in London, so I'm coming to see him or her, like that. Okay? The last bus leave, how long ago did the last bus leave? Last here is like maybe the last one that just left, like that. But on the other hand, the last bus leaves at 11:30. In that instance, it's the last of the day, like that. This one is the last, maybe 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, like that. Okay? So what's interesting is you don't have this on the slide, but I just want to point this out. The pronouns, let me show you this table first. Pronoun, you don't have this on your PowerPoint, okay? This is just what I type up today. So the pronoun system in English, you know that pronouns are deictic terms, right? It depends on who said it and who is referred to, who is being referred to. And this is what you guys know already. We have singular and plural pronouns in English. I is singular, we is plural, right? I is, na or jo, right? 저는, like that. We is 우리, plural, you know that. And second person, you or you, same thing in English. You to refer to one single person or you to refer to everyone. You or you guys, like that. In Korean it's like 여러분, right? Or 여러분들, right? Or third person, he, she, it, or the plural is they. Everybody knows this, okay? But what's interesting about this chart is when I have you under the first person singular and when I have you under the third person singular, okay? So that's the point that I will talk about today. Because we never thought of you as being the first or the third person, right? Because you is always the second person most of the time. Second person is the listener or the hearer. First person speaker, second person listener, third person the thing or the person being talked about, not in that immediate context. Okay? So what's interesting is the use of you under the first person singular and the use of you as the third person singular. And I call you in the first person column here as shared experience use, and you in the third person here as the impersonal use. Okay? So I'll explain what it means. So you have shared experience in the first person and you impersonal in the third person. Okay? All pronouns are deictic, okay? So it depends on who said I, right? If it's I who said I refers to Krista. If it's Taeyeon, it's Taeyeon, right? So and so on. So we'll move on to some examples. For you impersonal, this is third person you, okay? I have this example. You impersonal third person refers to everybody. Impersonal is not personal. Im is not, right? So you impersonal is third person. It applies to everyone. So it doesn't pick out any personal thing, any person in particular. It's everyone. So it's used with idioms, or it is used with facts that are universal facts. Okay? These are just examples. If you look at this example, money can't buy you happiness. Money can't buy you happiness. This is like an idiom, right? Or it's a universal fact. When you want to give advice to someone, well, don't care so much about money because money cannot buy you happiness. You here doesn't mean anyone in particular, any reference in particular. It includes everybody. Money cannot buy anybody happiness, like that. So we call it you impersonal. So it's not second person because it doesn't refer to the listener specifically. It refers to everyone. Money cannot buy you happiness, like that. Okay? Or the first example is the same, it's impersonal. So impersonal is like third person, right? If people don't come home changed, so they talk about traveling, right? They say that traveling changes people because you learn new things, you learn new cultures and so on. If people don't come home changed after traveling, then it's just a waste of time and money, okay? That person says that. So you can see the word people. People here includes everybody, right? So if everybody doesn't come home changed like that, so if people in general don't come home changed after traveling, then it's just waste of time and money. If you afford to travel to some place different and not have it change you, there's something wrong about that. So you here is not the listener for sure, because this is like a fact, a universal fact according to the speaker's belief. So if one person, so it's third person, right? If anyone, in other words, if anyone affords to travel to some place different and not have it change that person himself, there's something wrong about that. So you here is not the listener per se. It's not specifically the listener. It applies to everyone. So that's why we call it you impersonal, which is you third person, because it doesn't apply to anyone in particular. And sometimes I use this you when I talk to people, and sometimes, a lot of time people would use this kind of you to refer to everyone, but it's not anyone in particular as to the reference. Okay. So that's the third person you. The second person you is what we are already familiar with, right? Next one is you as the first person, okay? First person is the speaker, right? But for you as the first person, I name it, what did I name it? Here, you shared experience, okay? The other one that we just look at is you impersonal to refer to everyone, right? Not anyone in particular, but everyone, one or everyone, okay? So this is, we're gonna talk about you shared experience here, okay? So let's look at this example. The speaker was telling a story about his trip to Tibet. I'm sorry, that's a typo, so I should change it to Tibet. I went to Tibet. Tibet is a country in China, right? The north of China. I went to Tibet. I went into Tibet in 2006. He was telling that story. And the next sentence, he said, every time you would turn a corner in the road in Tibet, right? You would see someone prostrating himself. Prostrate is like crawling on the ground, okay? So he was telling about his experience. But here, the word you, every time you would turn a corner in the road, meaning every time you make a turn in the road, left turn or right turn, you would see someone prostrating like on the ground like that. So you here certainly doesn't refer to the listener because the listener was not in Tibet at that time. So it could not be the listener for sure. So you here and you here cannot be everybody, right? It's not everybody that's on the road for sure, right? So you here is what we call first person. It's every time I would turn when I was in Tibet. Every time I turn a corner in the road, I would see someone. So you here refers to the speaker. But the speaker used you to invite the listener to share the experience, to make it closer as if it's her own experience, it's the listener's own experience, okay? So that's why we call it you first person here. Because you can substitute I here. Every time I would turn the corner in the road in Tibet, I would see. You can substitute you with I. But you here is just a kind of strategy that invites the listener to share the experience as if he or she was there, okay? Sometimes I use you like this, but it doesn't refer to the listener in particular, okay? So this use of you is interesting because people use it in, or because you use it in stories all the time, in conversation all the time, okay? And finally, we can talk about we. We is for the first person, right? First person. And it's true in most cases. But I would also put we in this third person category too. I put we here. So we impersonal. Because sometimes when you use we, it doesn't pick out any group in particular. It could refer to human beings as a whole, okay? Sometimes we have X and Y and Z needs like that, okay? For impersonal use, the third person, like first we cut the onions and put them in a pan, then we add water. In a television show that shows how to cook something, right? First, we cut the onions. It's not the speaker, it's not the listener who are doing the cutting or who are doing the putting in the pan at that moment. It's like anyone, right? Or we are a great nation. So this one doesn't pick out anyone in particular. We, who are we, right? Great nation, who are we, right? And you can also have the inclusive use and exclusive use that are first person, okay? So the impersonal use, that's third person, right? Third person. And the inclusive and exclusive, these are first person. The inclusive use includes the speaker and the listener. Inclusive, it means include, right? Includes the speaker and the listener. Like teacher to students, shall we get started? We here refers to the teacher and the students as well. So we as a group, okay? So it includes the listener. But there are times when you don't include the listener, we call that exclusive use, okay? Exclude. Doctor to the patient, how are we feeling today? We can say that, how are we feeling today, right? How are we feeling today? We here is certainly not the doctor, right? It's the patient because he is diagnosing the symptoms of the patient. But he still uses we just to show the same group, whatever reason. But we here, the reference is only to the patient, okay? I don't know what Korean people use when they use uri, like uri 엄마, our mother, uri 엄마, when in a conversation. Whether it's inclusive or exclusive, I'm not sure, but it certainly refers to that family, not uri. Doesn't include the listeners 엄마 for sure, right? Uri 엄마, uri 동생, like that, right? So uri 집, like uri 집. Where is your house? You would say 우리 집 is where 강남에 있어, whatever, right? So 우리 집 is, I don't know, doesn't include the listener's house for sure, right? So because you don't say 나의 집 or something, right? 나의 집, 강남에 있어. You don't say that, right? 우리 집, you say 우리 집. So we talked about deictic terms. We talked about the fact that the word I or you could refer to different people depending on who say it and depending on the situation. And we call that deictic terms, okay? Deictic terms are terms whose reference change every time depending on the origin of the utterance. If it's I, the origin is I, the reference will change, okay? So before we stop for today, keep in mind that it's not that the word meaning of the deictic term, the meaning is not the meaning that changes. Here always has the meaning of in this place, okay? The meaning is the same, but the reference changes. So I would use this. So what's important is the reference. For deictic terms, reference will change depending on the origin of the utterance. Okay? Not the meaning of the word. Here always means in this place, or I always the speaker. But the reference, what it refers to, the thing or the person it refers to will change depending on the origin of the utterance, okay? As an example, I is the best example, the word I. If the origin is Krista, like when I say, oh, I like to teach, like that, I would refer to Krista. Krista would be the reference, okay? But if it's somebody else, okay, who said I, right? If it's Taeyeon or if it's Hyunjang, whatever, I would refer to those people who use it. So the origin is important. So where does the utterance originate from? Okay, so it will have an effect on the reference of that term, I or you, and so on. So if the reference change, then it's a deictic term. Okay, depending on the situation. Or in the example of the word here, depending on the origin of that utterance, right? If you utter the word here in this room, right, the third floor of Inmunde, here's the third floor of Inmunde. But if you say the word here at Hanyang Station, then the word here would refer to Hanyang Station. So the referent changes depending on the origin. So that's what we call a deictic term. Okay?